Dear Radiant Leo, something monumental is approaching you, and no, it's not a coincidence that you've arrived here at this exact moment. The universe has sent you a very clear message, a big, resounding yes. This is the green light you've been waiting for, and everything you've been hesitating to begin is now asking to be set in motion. This video was created for one purpose: to deliver that divine confirmation you've silently asked for. You may have felt it building inside you, that quiet tug in your chest, that feeling that something big is about to happen. And you're right. The door is open. The invitation is on the table. Now it's time for you, dear Leo, to step through it. You didn't find this video randomly. You were guided here. Whether through synchronicity, intuition, or sheer energetic alignment, you followed the call. And now, I invite you to stay with me, not just to listen passively, but to receive deeply. What you're about to hear is more than just a horoscope. It's a message from the energetic current moving through your life right now, a message of breakthrough, initiation, and personal power. In the next few minutes, we will dive into the cosmic blueprint unfolding just for you, combining astrology, tarot, self-healing, numerology, color frequency, and the law of attraction. You'll not only see where you're heading, but why now is the moment to leap. Yes, even if you're scared. Especially if you're scared. I know how much you've carried recently. Maybe you're wondering if you can still believe in new beginnings. Maybe you've been burned before. But Leo, this time is different. This time, the universe isn't asking you to trust blindly. It's showing you signs, alignment, momentum. All you have to do is listen. As someone who's guided thousands through their healing and awakening journey, and as a specialist in astrology, tarot, energetic therapy, and law of attraction, I want you to know that what you're experiencing is valid. And more importantly, it's leading you somewhere beautiful. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to say thank you. Your presence here means everything. Every time you like a video, share a comment, or subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness, you become part of a growing community of conscious souls who are choosing to live with purpose, clarity, and alignment. Your support fuels this sacred space, and I am truly grateful to walk this path with you. And Leo, trust me, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this video. What the universe is about to reveal will not only surprise you, it may just change the way you move forward from this day on. Now tell me in the comments, what brought you here today? Was it a sign? A feeling? A longing to know what's next? Let's begin this journey together, one bold, aligned step at a time. You may not realize it, dear Leo, but you've been dimming your own light, not out of weakness, but out of a quiet desire to keep others comfortable. This is something that happens more often to strong souls than you might think. You, who were born under the sign of the sun, carry a natural magnetism that draws eyes, attention, and often admiration without even trying. But somewhere along the way, perhaps you began to associate that attention with discomfort. Perhaps someone made you feel too much. And so, almost unconsciously, you've started stepping back. You've become the lion who hides its roar so the forest stays quiet. Yet the oracle speaks clearly now. Admiration is not ego. It is recognition. And you, Leo, are worthy of being seen. The card Admiration reminds us that being appreciated isn't a luxury, it's a reflection of alignment. When you accept praise with humility, you invite in even more of the life you desire. But when you reject it, or downplay it, you send mixed signals to the universe, signals that say, "I'm not ready for more." And so things pause. Opportunities pause. Relationships hesitate. Not because you are undeserving, but because your energy is saying, "Not yet." Now, let me share something deeper with you, something rooted in ancient inner wisdom. There is a quiet truth passed down across lifetimes, that humility is not about shrinking, but about walking with light and still leaving space for others to shine beside you. You do not have to go dark for someone else to glow. You simply need to remain lit with the awareness that your light is not competition, it's invitation. And true confidence is not noisy. It's gentle. It's embodied. It says, "I am here, I am willing, I am open." It's this very state of presence that transforms energy from static to magnetic. When the second card, gratitude, arrives alongside admiration, we see a sacred formula emerging. Recognition plus gratitude equals radiance. It's not just about being appreciated by others, it's about recognizing your own gifts first, and offering thanks for them. In energy terms, gratitude is an amplifier. It heightens your frequency like sunlight through a prism, scattering into beams of possibility. The more specific your gratitude becomes, not just, "I'm grateful for life," but, "I'm grateful for the way my creativity flows in the morning, for the strength in my hands, for the warmth in my friendships," the more your aura expands. And with that expansion comes opportunity. The right people. The right timing. The right opening. Here's a small but powerful self-help practice. Each morning, before you reach for your phone or scroll through the noise of the world, pause. Breathe. Write down 5 things, just 5, that you are sincerely grateful for. Don't force it. Let them come naturally. Some days, it may be the same list. Other days, it may surprise you. But each time you do this, you are recalibrating your inner magnet. You're telling the universe, "Yes, I see. Yes, I receive. Yes, I'm ready for more." And this week, if you wish to embody that readiness even further, dress or meditate with the colors of golden yellow and solar orange. These shades don't just symbolize royalty and movement, they activate it. In color frequency work, gold invokes confidence rooted in wisdom, while orange stirs creative action. Together, they form a palette of empowered emergence. You are not here to shrink, Leo. You are here to shine without apology. Let your gratitude be your compass and your light be your signature. The world doesn't need you smaller. It needs you fully, fiercely, and beautifully whole. There comes a moment in every brave soul's journey when the path ahead splits not into right or wrong, but into known and unknown. And this is where you are now, dear Leo. The energy of the Two of Wands doesn't ask you to question whether you are capable, it asks you whether you are ready to grow. You stand holding a world of possibility in your hands, and with it, the responsibility of choice. But unlike choices driven by fear or logic alone, this one is guided by something deeper, the invitation of life itself asking you to say yes. The Ace of Wands arrives like a spark. Not the loud explosion of external fireworks, but the quiet ignition of something within you, a creative pulse, an instinctive fire, a call to action. It's the kind of flame that doesn't demand attention but still lights up the room. This card is the green light. It is pure potential offered with no guarantee, only the promise of momentum. But here's the truth, the universe doesn't respond to perfection, it responds to motion. So if you're waiting until everything feels safe, certain, or complete, you may wait forever. The only way to invite support from the universe is to move. And who better to answer that call than the Knight of Wands, the part of you that is fearless, passionate, and beautifully untamed. This is not the version of you who hesitates. This is the version who rides forward with intention, even if the road isn't fully mapped. The Knight doesn't wait for confirmation from others, they become their own confirmation. They burn with the kind of purpose that says, even if I fall, I will rise stronger. That spirit, that fire is what you're being called to channel now. In numerology, the presence of the number 1 amplifies this entire theme. 1 is the number of beginnings, of individuality, of forward direction. It is the energy of the pioneer, the creator, the seed that breaks through the soil even though it has never seen sunlight. And if you've been noticing 111 appearing around you on clocks, receipts, or unexpected places, know this, it's not coincidence. It is a signature from the universe whispering, this is the time. You are the one. There is a saying rooted in ancient mindfulness teachings that goes something like this: the step is the goal. In other words, the value of your journey lies not in arriving at a certain outcome but in the movement itself. Progress is not measured by how far you've gone but by your willingness to go, especially when the road is unclear. When you move in alignment, even one step can shift the entire field around you. That is the essence of the law of attraction. Aligned action creates new conditions. So if you find yourself hesitating right now, unsure which path to take, start not with the mind, but with the body. Sit with each option. Speak them aloud. Ask yourself, which direction makes my heart open? Which possibility feels like expansion, not contraction? Your intuition is not a whisper, it's a compass. You just have to listen. Remember, beginnings rarely come with guarantees. But they always come with power. Let this be your moment to step forward, not because you're certain, but because you're alive. And the universe always, always meets a soul in motion. Even the fiercest hearts have memories that ache quietly beneath the surface, and Leo, for all your strength, you are no exception. The energy of the 9 of Wands paired with the 5 of Cups speaks to a deep emotional truth. You've been here before. You've tried. You've reached, risked, and believed, only to find yourself standing alone at the edge of disappointment. Somewhere along the line, you learned to guard your hope, not because you lost faith in life, but because the sting of unmet expectations made you cautious. And so you've built a quiet wall, not to keep love or opportunity out, but to keep yourself safe inside. But the cards don't lie, and the message here is clear. This time is not like the last. This time carries a different vibration, a different lesson, a different outcome. What's waiting for you now is not a repeat of the past, but a redirection towards something more aligned with who you've become. The torch you still carry in the 9 of Wands isn't just your last bit of strength, it's your wisdom, your resilience, your soul's unbreakable flame. You are not standing at the end of the road. You are standing at the threshold of something sacred, something only accessible to those who have been willing to fall and rise again. The 5 of Cups often shows us what's been lost: the spilled wine, the broken bond, the dreams that didn't blossom. But what's most important in this image is not what's fallen, but what still stands. Behind the figure mourning the cups on the ground, there are two still upright full, waiting, untouched. In life, we often focus so intensely on what went wrong that we miss the miracle quietly blooming behind us. The path of healing is not about forgetting our grief. It's about remembering that not everything is gone and that what remains may be even more meaningful than what was lost. From a mindfulness perspective, we can begin to see these experiences not as failures, but as part of a refining process, much like how gold is purified through fire. Pain, when fully felt and consciously released, becomes fuel. It transforms into depth, clarity, and purpose. But to access that transformation, you must be willing to set down the armor you no longer need. Not everything deserves your defense. Not every new beginning requires a shield. According to the law of attraction, holding on to past pain even unconsciously creates energetic clutter. It's like keeping your hands full of old stones when the universe is trying to offer you a gift. When you release, you make space. When you forgive, especially yourself, you become receptive again. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened, it's about choosing to move forward without dragging the weight of it behind you. Here's a gentle but powerful practice I invite you to try: write a letter to your past self. Not the perfect version of you, but the one who struggled, who tried their best, who hurt and kept going anyway. Say everything you wish someone had said to you back then. When you're done, fold the paper, bless it with a breath, and release it either by burning it or burying it. As the smoke or earth takes it in, let yourself imagine that you're truly free from carrying it into the next chapter. The truth is, Leo, your past doesn't define you, but how you choose to hold it does. You still have that flame. And now, it's time to use it not to protect, but to light the path ahead. This isn't just another try. This is the one that was always meant for you. You've been carrying so much for so long that the weight itself has become familiar, so familiar, in fact, that you might not even notice how close you are to setting it down. The Ten of Wands shows us this very moment, when the burden feels heaviest just before the release, when the final stretch demands the most effort, not because you're failing, but because you're succeeding. Fatigue doesn't mean you're off course, it's a signal that you're nearing the summit. Sometimes, when you're climbing a mountain, the path steepens right before the view opens up. You may be tempted to stop. But here's the deeper truth: you are far closer to breakthrough than you think. The appearance of the Ace of Cups in this spread is no accident. It is the cosmic reminder that love, healing, and emotional abundance are already on their way to you. This card doesn't arrive unless there's already a shift in your energy somewhere inside. You've softened, you become more receptive, even if you still feel guarded on the surface. The Ace of Cups is often called the cup of divine renewal, not because it comes when everything is perfect, but because it shows up the moment you allow your heart to open again, even just a little. Think of it like the first drops of rain after a long drought. You may not see the garden yet, but life is already returning to the soil beneath your feet. Then comes the Full card, often misunderstood. While many focus on the risk it represents, what matters most is the trust it requires. The Fool doesn't jump recklessly. The Fool steps forward with childlike clarity, understanding that uncertainty is not the enemy, it's a natural part of transformation. When you leap from a place of grounded awareness, what catches you isn't the ground, it's your own becoming. As one ancient teaching reminds us, when you let go of what you cling to, your hands become free to receive what was always meant for you. The Fool shows you that freedom doesn't come from knowing what's next, it comes from believing that life is unfolding for you, not against you. Now, on a more practical level, this combination of cards highlights the toll that long-term stress can take on your system. You may have noticed mental fog, sleep issues, or low energy, not because you're lacking discipline or drive, but because your nervous system has been in overdrive for too long. And when the body is holding tension, it blocks not only vitality but also clarity and flow. This is the time to gently care for your vessel, your physical and energetic body, as you would a sacred temple. Dark leafy greens, magnesium, and B-complex vitamins are not just nutritional suggestions, they are keys to calming the mind and restoring your inner balance. Start your mornings in stillness. Even 10 minutes of deep breathing and silent affirmation can change the entire direction of your day. A simple phrase like, "I am walking toward light," is more than comforting. It is a neurological anchor, rewiring your thought patterns toward growth. Every breath becomes a brushstroke, painting a new reality onto the canvas of your life. The truth is, you are not lost. You are arriving. And sometimes, arrival feels like exhaustion because your spirit knows it has finally reached a threshold. Don't turn back now. What's ahead isn't another burden, it's a blessing. You're not standing at the edge of a cliff. You're standing at the edge of flight. The ground beneath you has been shifting, not to break you, but to lift you. And when you step, you'll discover something miraculous. The wings were always there. You just had to trust yourself enough to open them. Sometimes, the universe doesn't whisper. It interrupts. And the combination of the Six of Pentacles, the Ace of Swords, and the Tower brings exactly that kind of moment. It's the kind of energy that breaks through your routine, disrupts your assumptions, and reveals what's been out of balance for far too long. But not to punish, to realign. You may have been carrying more than your share lately, Leo. Giving more than receiving. Holding together situations, relationships, or responsibilities where the energy exchange hasn't been mutual. This trio of cards arrives as a powerful wake-up call. Help is on the way, but so is truth. And both are needed. The Six of Pentacles brings in the frequency of reciprocity. It asks you to reflect. Have you been overextending yourself in the name of loyalty or pride? Have you worn strength like a badge, forgetting that true strength also knows how to receive? There's a certain kind of quiet suffering that comes from doing it all on your own, not because you have to, but because somewhere deep down, you've told yourself that needing support makes you less radiant. But that belief is rooted in illusion. Even the sun, for all its power, shares space with the moon. Even the lion, for all its might, belongs to a pride. You were not made to walk through this life unsupported. And the moment you let yourself lean even just a little, something profound begins to shift. Enter the Ace of Swords. This card doesn't arrive gently, but it arrives clearly. It's the sudden insight, the undeniable clarity, the flash of understanding that pierces through emotional fog. It may show up through a conversation, a realization, or even through contrast, noticing what no longer resonates in your energy field. The Ace of Swords is not comfortable, but it is honest. It shows you exactly where imbalance exists and demands a response. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But that's not a burden, it's freedom. Because with truth comes choice, and with choice comes transformation. Then comes the Tower. And here's where we must shift our lens. The tower is not the enemy. It is the necessary dismantling of what has become unsustainable. In life, there are structures we build, mental, emotional, relational, that once served us, but eventually become too tight for our expanding spirit. The tower doesn't destroy what's true, it only destroys what no longer holds integrity. And when it crumbles, what remains is a foundation upon which something real can be built. The tower teaches us that clarity often comes through contrast. That sometimes, it takes a shattering to reveal what's solid. From a self-help perspective, this is your invitation to soften. To let go of the belief that asking for help is weakness. To allow others and life itself to meet you where you are. When you open to receive, not only do you relieve pressure, but you create room for connection. You create space for mutual energy, for shared responsibility, for companionship that nourishes rather than drains. And energetically, this is crucial. The law of attraction responds to balance. When you align your inner world with the willingness to give and receive in equal measure, you begin to attract relationships, opportunities, and resources that reflect that same harmony. There is an old teaching that says, when the hand opens, it can give, but it can also finally be filled. Consider this your moment to open. To release what's too heavy. To accept the truth you've sensed but haven't fully faced. And to let support in not as a favor, but as a natural part of your soul's design. You don't have to carry everything alone. And now, finally, you don't have to. Let this be the chapter where you receive as boldly as you give. Let it be the turning point where your strength is redefined not by how much you carry, but by how courageously you allow yourself to be carried, too. There comes a moment when clarity is no longer something you wait for, but something you choose. The combination of the Five of Swords, Judgment, and the Queen of Swords signals that moment with unmistakable force. This is not a crossroads you stumble upon, it's a turning point you create. And it doesn't begin with anger or fear, but with the deep and quiet realization that something, a job, a relationship, a role you've been playing no longer serves your growth. When the Five of Swords appears, it often reflects a dynamic where you've been tolerating too much for too long. Maybe you've stayed silent to keep peace. Maybe you've held on to a situation that chips away at your light, piece by piece, because part of you still hoped it would change. But now, the illusion is dissolving. Not with drama, but with truth. And with that truth, the power to step away. Judgment follows not as punishment, but as awakening. It's the voice inside that says, enough. And not in anger but in liberation. That voice comes from a place deeper than the mind. It's the wisdom you've earned through every cycle, every challenge, every lesson that taught you the cost of abandoning yourself for the comfort of others. Judgment reminds us that release is an act of love not just for yourself, but for everything and everyone involved. Sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is walk away from what no longer resonates, so that all beings involved have the space to evolve. Then comes the Queen of Swords. She doesn't cut to harm, she cuts to heal. She sees clearly, speaks truthfully, and chooses wisely. She understands that clarity is kindness. You are being invited into this energy now, not to harden, but to refine. The Queen doesn't act from impulse, she acts from alignment. And when you move from that place, you become the architect of your own freedom. Her sword is not a weapon, it's a boundary carved in self-respect. And when wielded with intention, it doesn't push people away. It simply says, "This is the space where I honor my growth." You are welcome here if you honor it, too. From the lens of the law of attraction, saying no is just as magnetic as saying yes when done consciously. Every time you walk away from what diminishes you, you send a signal to the universe that you are ready to receive something more true. When you stop settling, you start aligning. And that shift reverberates. It calls in people, opportunities, and experiences that match your elevated frequency. You don't have to fight for your place when you know your worth. You simply step into it. There's a practice I recommend in moments like these, simple, yet transformative. Take a quiet hour with yourself. Write down 3 things you know it's time to release. They don't have to be dramatic. It could be a habit, a thought pattern, a connection, a role. Next to each one, write how it makes you feel. Then ask, does this feed who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, circle it and commit to one concrete action within 48 hours that begins the process of letting it go. In ancient wisdom traditions, there's a teaching that says freedom doesn't come from adding more, it comes from subtracting what weighs the spirit down. Let this be that moment. Not a rejection, but a return. A return to your center, to your clarity, to the truth of who you are when you no longer compromise for belonging. What's meant for you won't require you to shrink. And what no longer fits isn't a failure, it's an invitation to rise. So here you are, Leo, standing at the edge not of uncertainty, but of invitation. You came looking for a sign, a confirmation, something to help you decide whether it's time to move forward. And now you have it. The universe didn't whisper this one. It spoke loud and clear, yes. This is your green light. This is your moment. But here's the thing, signs are only powerful if we're willing to follow them. A door means nothing unless you choose to walk through it. So the real question now isn't, should I go? It's, what am I waiting for? What would your life begin to look like if you stopped waiting to be ready and started trusting that you already are? You don't need anyone's permission to rise into your power. You don't need a perfect plan or a flawless version of yourself to begin. You were not born to stay small. You were born to shine, and not the kind of light that flickers to please the room, but the kind that radiates from a soul that knows its worth. The kind that doesn't just illuminate the path, it becomes the path. Throughout this reading, you've been shown truths, tools, and turning points, but what you choose to do with them is where transformation really begins. Will you let go of what no longer aligns? Will you speak the truth you've been holding back? Will you finally say yes to the life that's been trying to find you? The guidance is here, but your courage brings it to life. If any part of this message resonated, then let that be your cue to act. Write the letter. Make the decision. Take the step. Whether small or bold, movement in the direction of your truth will shift everything. And if you're wondering where to start, start with yourself. Ask, what am I ready to receive now that I've said no to what holds me back? What is one thing I can do today that supports the version of me I want to become? I invite you to take a moment, right now, and share with me in the comments, what was the message that struck you the most today? What part of this guidance felt like it was written just for you? This isn't just a space for listening, it's a space for reflection, for connection, for honoring the journey we're all walking in different ways, but under the same stars. And before we close, let me say this from my heart, thank you. Truly. For watching, for showing up for yourself, for being a part of this sacred space we call eternal mindfulness. Every like, every comment, every subscription isn't just support, it's energy, intention, and alignment. And it allows this channel to continue sharing messages that heal, inspire, and uplift. So if you feel called, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone else who may need their own reminder that their moment is now. You never know whose light you might help reignite. Leo, this was never about whether you were ready. It was always about whether you were willing. And now, with the universe saying yes, the only thing left to ask is, are you ready to say yes to yourself? Your path is open. Your truth is calling. And you, beloved Lionheart, already hold the flame. This is eternal mindfulness where your inner light remembers how to rise.